Magic the Gathering's latest set, Phyrexia Obliterator, is coming out soon, and there are a lot of awesome new and reprinted cards in the set. So in today's video, we are going to be looking at the top 10 most expensive cards in the set. That way you know what to look for when you're opening packs, and you can kind of see what the most powerful things from the set are. Before we can jump into that, one quick disclaimer: all prices in this video are in USD and are pre-order prices. They are likely to shift as we pass release and go beyond. But either way, let's jump right into this, starting with number 10. Which is Drivnod Carnage Dominus, which is currently going for $17.99. It's a 5-drop legendary mono black 8/3, and it says, if a creature died causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. Now this is part of a cycle. There are 5 of these that all double something. So this doubles death triggers, which is really powerful. It has a second ability though. You can pay 2 Phyrexian black mana, as well as exile 3 creature cards from your graveyard to put an indestructible counter on Drivnod. There are a couple things that cause this to be an increased price. First off is the commander effect. It is a legendary creature, so it can be your commander, which means it's going to be more expensive. On top of it, anything that doubles anything is generally really good. When you look at a card, it is balanced around getting one of an effect, which means that it increases the power of the rest of your deck, and it overall can be really good, and we've seen this in the past with similar type cards. On top of that, it has the ability to gain indestructible. You know, one of the downsides of this card is that it is a creature, which means the effect is a little bit less durable as there's a lot of creature removal, but it can kind of get around that by letting you exile cards from your graveyard and pay some life to give it indestructible, which then turns it into an 8/3 indestructible, which is great for blocking, great for attacking, and overall is just really awesome. Next up, we have number 9, which is Nissa Ascended Animus. This is also going for $17.99, but it is a 7-drop green legendary planeswalker Nissa. Now, 2 of those mana can be Phyrexian, so it can be a 5-drop, and it has 7 loyalty. Remember, if you pay the Phyrexian mana, because it has completed, it enters with 2 fewer loyalty counters, so, you know, you get 7 loyalty for 7 mana, you get 3 loyalty for 5. But it has some really powerful abilities. You can +1 to create an XX green Phyrexian horror creature token where X is Nissa's loyalty. So if you pay 7 mana and you +1 it, you will get an 8/8 because it will get the counter before it counts it. So that's really good. A -1 that says destroy target artifact or enchantment is also really great. It kind of feels bad sometimes to run artifact or enchantment destruction in certain formats because it may not be relevant. But that's really good, having it as an alternate mode if you need to deal with something. And then it has a -7, which you can do technically as soon as Nissa comes out if you pay the full 7 mana. And it says, until end of turn, creatures you control get +1/+1 for each forest you control and gain trample. So very good ability, but it's not something that's long lasting. Sometimes with Planeswalker ults, it's like you get an emblem with whenever you blink, draw a card, and that is a long lasting effect. This has to kind of be balanced around the fact that it can come out and immediately ultimate. Now that is very powerful. That can win the game very easily. And overall, this just seems good. Next up, number 8. Phyrexia Obliterator, currently going for $19.99. This is a reprint, and it's a really good one. It is black, so 4 black for a 5/5 creature Phyrexian horror with trample. And then, whenever a source deals damage to Phyrexia Obliterator, that source's controller sacrifices that many permanents. So this is not a new card. It is powerful. This creature is so hard to block, because if you do try to kill it, you're doing at least 5 damage to it, which means you are sacrificing at least 5 permanents. So this pretty much has to be killed by a kill spell, or you have to be willing to sacrifice a lot of stuff. It's pretty rough. The biggest factor here is that this is being reprinted into standard because of this set, and in a standard filled with very powerful mono black options like Shieldred and Liliana of the Veil, Phyrexia Obliterator looks to add to that deck potentially and make it even more powerful. It's been proven in the past, it'll keep happening. Phyrexia Obliterator is a good card, and the new art is pretty awesome. It's not as horror-y as I feel like the old one was, but I like when reprints get new art because it does make it feel a little bit newer than if they just reuse the same art. Next up, number 7, a very similar card, Phyrexia Vindicator, currently also going for $19.99. This one is white, 5/5 with flying, and it says, if damage would be dealt to Phyrexia Vindicator, prevent that damage. When damage is prevented this way, Phyrexia Vindicator deals that much damage to any target. This card is really good. It kind of fits in the same theme as Phyrexia Obliterator, where the more damage you deal to it, the worse it is, but it's very much like Stuffy Doll or Brash Taunter, where it's going to, stop the damage to itself and send it somewhere else. Now, what's interesting is it does it by preventing that damage, so this stops things like lifelink, and it makes it really hard to kill Phyrexia Vindicator. This one actually has to be killed with a kill spell or with a questing beast, but We don't talk about Questing Beast here. Very, very good. And it can hit any target. Stuffy Doll and Brash Taunter can only hit face. This can hit dangerous targets, so it makes it way more controlling, way more powerful, and a very, very good card if you can afford the 4 white to cast it. Alrighty, number 6, All Will Be One, also at $19.99. This is a 5-drop red enchantment, and it says, whenever you put 1 or more counters on a permanent or player, All Will Be One deals that much damage to target opponent, creatures an opponent controls, or planeswalker an opponent controls. So overall, you put a counter on something, you deal that much damage, which is really, really good in a set full of Proliferate. If there are 5 things with counters and you Proliferate, you are now dealing 5 damage. Instantly, this becomes an auto-include in any counters-based deck that's in red, especially in formats like Commander where you can afford the 5-drop enchantment. Counters are everywhere. Every set has them, and this just says, have counters, win the game. It'll end up being that All Will Be One should be in every counters-based deck that can run it, and so I expect the price on this to probably dip for a little bit, but then slowly creep back up as it becomes a must-include. Next up, number 5, this is Iker Moon Gauntlet, which is currently going for $22.99, and this is one of the spiciest cards that we've seen. It is a 3-drop blue artifact, and it says, planeswalkers you control have 0 loyalty, proliferate, and -12 loyalty, take an extra turn after this one. That is really powerful. It gives any planeswalker the ability to uptick all of your other planeswalkers, and just for that ability, it instantly becomes a must-include in planeswalker-based decks. But add on top of that, there are planeswalkers with no ability to uptick, which means that they can now be useful and uptick again, and activate their abilities again. The biggest one being Narset, the one that stops your opponents from drawing extra cards. But on top of that, the -12 takes planeswalkers that maybe have the ability to get a lot of counters, but don't have a great way to use them, and gives them an ability that is very, very good. Think Nissa from Zendikar Rising, who has landfall add a loyalty counter. Then it has a second ability. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, choose a counter on target permanent, put an additional counter of that kind on that permanent. So it's essentially Proliferate, but you choose 1 permanent to do it with and 1 counter. Most of the time that's going to be a planeswalker, but it doesn't have to be. So it's going to say, when you cast a planeswalker, uptick your other planeswalkers. So it's unpredictable how many counters your planeswalkers can get. This card is really, really crazy and will probably go up in price as it will need to be in every single planeswalker-based deck. Number 4 is Atraxa Grand Unifier. It's currently going for $22.99, and it is a 4-color, 7-drop, 7/7 legendary creature with flying, vigilance, death touch, and lifelink, and when it enters the battlefield, you reveal the top 10 cards of your library, and for each card type, you may put a card of that type that was revealed this way into your hand. So basically, look at the top 10, put 1 of each card type into your hand whenever she ETBs. This screams to me Commander. This is going to be a Commander for decks that don't have a Commander. It says play the best artifacts, battles, which we'll learn about in the next set, creatures, enchantments, instants, lands, planeswalkers, and sorceries. Put the best of each in your deck, have an even amount of each, and this is just going to generate you value. Flicker Atraxa a couple times and you get a pretty powerful Commander deck. High color count Commanders for decks that don't necessarily have Commanders like Kenrith can be really expensive, but it kind of depends. This kind of feels like Niv Mizzet Reborn to me, where it's not going to end up being that good because it's kind of just ETB, draw cards, and that's it. But who knows, I could be wrong. I'm not feeling the hype on this one. Number 3, Tekuthal in Query Dominus. It's currently going for $24.99, and it's another one of the doubler cycles. It is a 4-drop legendary creature with flying, and it says if you would proliferate twice instead, then you can pay 1 and 2 Phyrexia blue to remove 3 counters from among other artifacts, creatures, and planeswalkers you control to put an indestructible counter on Tekuthal. Overall, it's really, really good. Doubling things is good. This is the first of its kind, which I think is part of what's raising its price. We've seen death doublers before, we've seen token doublers before, we've seen power and toughness doublers before. We've never seen proliferation doublers, and so I think that's going to instantly make this better. On top of the fact that its indestructible ability is the easiest to activate because proliferation inherently makes it super easy to get those counters, especially if you're doubling it. I think this is just a very, very good card, and it is very unique. Very, very good. Next, we have a Mundrak Glory Dominus. It is currently going for $44.99, so we jump up a lot in price, but it's a 4-drop legendary creature, and it says if 1 or more tokens would be created under your control, twice that many are created instead. Another one of this cycle makes it into the top 10, and this one is extra powerful. This is Anointed Procession on a creature. It also has the ability to pay mana and do some other effect to put an indestructible counter. This time it's sacrificing artifacts and or creatures, which you're going to be having a lot of if you have tokens. On top of the fact that this is legendary, means that this is going to be a very, very powerful card. Token doublers are all expensive. Look at every single one. Anointed Procession, Parallel Lives, Double Age Season, they're all expensive, and so this one is going to be as well, especially because this can sit in the command zone. Really, really great card. Don't have a ton to add. Pretty much everything I said about the doublers applies to this one. But yeah, $44.99 is crazy. And number one, speaking of doubling, this one isn't part of the doubling cycle, but it still doubles things. It is Elish Norn, Mother of Machines. It is a 5-drop white legendary creature, Phyrexia Obliterator, 4/7, currently going for $47.99. It has Vigilance, and it says, if a permanent entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. And permanents entering the battlefield don't cause abilities of permanents your opponents control to trigger. This card is crazy. Hushbringer type effects, where you are shutting down your opponent's ETBs, are really good. Normally they're symmetrical though, so you shut down your own ETBs. This is not that. This says you double your ETBs and they get nothing. Doubling your ETBs, really good. Take everything I've said about doubling in this video, apply it again. On top of that, shutting down your opponents is really, really good. Add on top of that a 4/7 body for 5 mana, and you get a very, very powerful card going for $47.99. And it is the most expensive card in the set, and I think rightfully so. It's also a legendary creature. Again, can sit in the command zone. I'm sure you're not going to make friends if you do that, but who knows? Overall, guys, those are the top 10 most expensive cards in Phyrexia All Be One. Doesn't account for foils, doesn't account for alternate arts or anything like that. I'm actually doing a separate video later on covering that, so stay tuned and hit that subscribe button if you want to see that. But yeah, I will see you guys in the next one.